Hey, welcome back to the Amplified Podcast for the final episode of Season 3. Not the final episode of this podcast. We got a lot more books to go through. So today is the final episode of Leviticus. We're going to be covering Leviticus 25, 26, and 27. So if you're hoping this week for a little bit longer podcast, you may have just gotten your wish. And so we've been covering everything up until this point. We walked all the way through Genesis, Exodus, and now we're ending Leviticus. And so many people skip over reading Leviticus, and I get why we do, because we don't practice a lot of the things that are in there anymore. It's a lot to do with sacrifices, as we've covered, a lot to do with festivals that for the modern day Christian, it doesn't really, I don't know, it's not the same for us anymore. And so we end up just skipping over it, but there's so much. And really, the deeper you get into Leviticus and the more you study it, the more fascinating it becomes. And particularly with the second to last verse that I'll share today. So don't skip out before the end. But today we're going to be finishing up this book, and we'll be moving right into Numbers. Numbers is also fascinating, and it has a lot more narrative as well, a lot that we don't see in Exodus that gets skipped over on our way to, 1 Samuel, and just a lot that the church just kind of ignores, but we're not going to ignore it on this podcast. So today, if you want to go ahead and open up your Bible to Leviticus 25, you can do that, of course, in the Amplified Bible, as always, because this is the Amplified podcast, or you can open it up not in your Alabaster Bible, because they don't make Leviticus ones. I keep pushing this book series, but they don't have a Leviticus one yet. They actually don't have Numbers either. They're working their way through the Old Testament. They got a lot of New Testament ones too. So actually, all of them technically. So, man, I highly recommend getting those as gifts. And man, what better gift is there than the Word of God? And so, if you have somebody in your life that maybe has not read the Bible before, kind of just like they feel like it looks like a textbook. You open up, you're just not interested. Man, this is a perfect gift as just a starter of like, hey, I know you've been thinking about this. I know you've been going through a rough time. I got you the Psalms, and man, this brings a lot of peace to me when I read it, for sure. You can give it as a gift that way, or you want to start with Genesis. I know they have Genesis. They have all the Gospels, and so it makes a great gift, especially for someone who's a new Christian. And so highly recommend getting one. But let's go ahead and finish up Leviticus together today. One thing I want to correct from the last podcast was I said that we didn't cover one of the celebrations that actually was covered in Leviticus. I just missed it because it didn't have its own section, but this sacred assembly down here at the bottom, this really, if you notice, like the Feast of Trumpets, the Day of Atonement, the Week of Tabernacles, and the sacred assembly all happen in the 7th month. And really the sacred assembly is just the final Sabbath day where they don't work and where they have special sacrifices, just to kind of wrap up the celebration season. Kind of like we have our holiday season at the end of the year for different reasons. This would have been their holiday season in the 7th month. This is around October, I think, but I can read to you even what it says here in the text. It's coming all from Leviticus 23, verse 36. For 7 days you shall present an offering by fire to the Lord. Of course, that's the Feast of Tabernacles. On the 8th day you shall have a holy convocation. Remember, we talked about that is just the people of God getting together and present an offering by fire to the Lord. It's a festive assembly. This is a party to celebrate what God's done. And on that day you shall not do any work, of course. And so in my chart here for the Amplified Bible, this happens around September, October. It's a day of gathering, rest, and sacrifices, and really just to commemorate the closing of the cycle of festivals. And so Purim is different. So Purim is the last one that I have written down here. Purim is different because Purim doesn't have to do with anything with Egypt, anything with their sojourn in the desert. In fact, at the time of Moses, the reason why they would have celebrated Purim was not going to happen for like another, I want to say 300 years, 400 years maybe. Purim has completely to do with the book of Esther. And so we'll cover that someday, but they celebrate Purim by reading the entire book of Esther together. And every time Haman, who is the antagonist in the story, the one who's against the Hebrews, every time you read his name, all the children listening to the story will yell and boo and hiss and different things. And every time they mention Mordecai, who's the hero of the story, this is Esther's uncle, everybody cheers. And so that isn't going to happen for generations, but it's still one of the main festivals. And today we're going to cover really quickly the Sabbath year and the year of Jubilee we're going to talk a lot about. And those are the last two celebrations that they're going to do. And so remember, this is all about remembering and about worship. And so it's having a tangible thing that helps us remember what God has done every single year. But it's also an act of worship to remember what God has done. And so let's dive into it. So chapter 25, verse 1 says this. Then the Lord spoke to Moses at Mount Sinai, saying, "Speak to the children of Israel and say to them, when you come into the land which I'm giving you," of course, is the land of Canaan that they're going to dispossess all the people that are there. "Then then the land shall keep a Sabbath." Sorry, I'm totally messing this up. "When you come into the land which I'm giving you, then the land shall keep a Sabbath to the Lord. For 6 years you shall sow your field, and for 6 years you shall prune. But in the 7th year there should be a Sabbath of rest for the land, a Sabbath to the Lord. You shall not sow seed in your field, nor prune your vineyard." And so quite literally what the Lord is saying is, hey, for 6 years, every spring you're going to plant whatever it is you need to grow in that field. But on the 7th year, you're not going to plant anything. And then it's going to explain what happens about what comes up naturally. Whatever reseeds itself, whatever just comes up naturally the next year in your harvest, you shall not reap. So you're not going to go out into your field and take the grapes, take the barley, whatever it is out there. Nor shall you gather grapes from your uncultivated vine. It shall be a sabbatical year of rest for the land. So this is so much of farming today. A drastic percentage of farming today has to do with fertilizers, has to do with nitrogen content, has to do with now they're banning glyphosate for just wild reasons because it causes cancer and all this stuff. But this was the Lord's way of preventing that whole thing. Because if we would actually let the land rest for a full year every single cycle of 7 years, then we wouldn't need near as much fertilizer. We wouldn't need near as much added nitrogen in, because not only would the Lord have taken care of the land, but giving it a year of rest to replenish its own natural minerals and nutrients would have taken care of a lot of the problems that we're trying to fix today, because we're planting the same seed in the same ground every year, decade after decade, and it's depleting the natural resources. And so the Lord is looking out for his people, even in things that they don't understand yet. Verse 6, "And all of you shall have food for whatever the untilled land produces during its Sabbath year." So all the wild land, that's what you're going to eat off of for that year. Yourself and your male and female servants, your hired servant, your foreigners who reside among you. And God is not only just giving them this command, but he's also giving them a promise that you will have enough food. I will make sure there is enough food when you're obedient to me not to plant in the 7th year, to give the land its rest. I will provide food for you. And it's really an exercise of faith every 7 years. Okay, we're not going to plant this year. This is what all of our livelihood depends upon, but we're going to trust God for this year. We're going to exercise our faith. Even your domestic animals and the wild animals that are in your land shall have its crops to eat. So the Lord's saying that I'm not only going to take care of you, I'm going to take care of everybody in your household, and I'm also going to take care of all of your animals. Do not worry about having enough to eat. Just obey what I'm telling you to do. So that is the Sabbath year. That is the 7th year. And it's actually going to get more intense here in just a moment. But remember, this is all about remembering what the Lord has done, what he's asked us to do, his faithfulness, but doing each of these is actually an act of worship. And so the last one, I want to erase this here in a second, but this is the year of Jubilee, and this is every 50th year. I'm going to erase this real quick. Every 50th year will be the year of Jubilee. So it's about remembering the faithfulness of God and his commands, but it's also an act of worship. And our final one that we're going to study today before we jump into other stuff is the year of Jubilee. Jubilee really just meaning joy, I'm pretty sure. Year of Jubilee. You're also to count off 7 Sabbaths of years for yourself. So 7 times 7 years, so that you have the time of 7 Sabbaths of year, namely 49 years. So every 7th year is going to be a Sabbath year. You're not going to plant. We just discussed that. But once there has been 7 of those, so that'd be 49 years. The very next year, the 50th year, is the year of Jubilee. Then you shall sound the ram's horn everywhere on the 10th day of the 7th month, almost October. On the Day of Atonement, you shall sound the trumpet throughout your land. You shall consecrate the 50th year and proclaim freedom for the slaves throughout the land to all its inhabitants. It shall be a jubilee year of remission for you. Each of you shall return to his own ancestral property that was sold to another because of poverty, and each of you shall return to his family from whom he was separated by bondage. So quite literally, let's say my family falls on hard times for whatever reason, and I have to sell off part of my land. Let's say I'm a part of the tribe of Benjamin, and I have to sell it off to the tribe of Dan. Somebody wants to buy it. Okay. But the Lord is making sure that no one tribe projects dominance over another over enough time. They kind of monopolize the territory. He's making sure that even the poor are taken care of. You're going to see time and time again, the Lord is the defender of those who cannot defend themselves, defender of the poor, defender of really the guilty as well. And so every 50th year, let's say I sold you this land, these 40 acres that I own as the tribe of Benjamin. I needed money. I needed to get by. In the 50th year, at no cost to me, that land would revert back to my family. So it would be deeded back to me, simply because it's the year of joy. Because really, it's not us who owns the land. God owns all the land. We're basically just leasing it. And the Lord's trying to bring it back to where he originally established it. That 50th year shall be a jubilee for you. You shall not sow seed, nor reap what reseeds, nor gather the grapes for the uncultivated vines. We'll talk about that in just a moment. For it is the Jubilee. It shall be holy to you. You shall eat its crops out of the field. It shall be holy to you. You shall eat its crops out of the field. It just said don't eat crops out of the field. You shall not sow seed, nor reap what reseeds, nor gather. Maybe out of the field just means things that are not in the normal field. I think so. Let me see. 50th year of the year usually follows Sabbath year of rest. So this meant that there were 2 years of rest in a row for the lamb. Okay, we'll cover that in a second. Verse 13. In this year of Jubilee, each of you shall return to his own ancestral property. This also has to do with people who, for whatever reason, they ended up being poorer than they should have. And so they sell themselves as a hired servant to another family. Well, in the 50th year, you would have been let go and declared free. Like your debt has been paid, essentially. Okay. If you sell anything to your friend or buy from your friend, you shall not wrong one another. According to the number of years after the Jubilee, you shall buy from your friend. He's to sell to you according to the number of years of crops, which may be harvested before you must restore the property to him. So let's say I have to sell this property. Let's say the year of Jubilee was 10 years ago. Well, if nothing changes, you're going to get to keep that property for the next 40 years. And so I'm going to charge you a higher price because it's going to be 40 years before it automatically comes back to me. But if the year of Jubilee is next year, I'm just trying to make ends meet. I'm not going to sell it to you for near as much as I would if this was 39 years before, because it's coming back to me next year anyway. So the Lord's trying to make sure there's fairness in business at all times as well. If the years until the next Jubilee are many, you shall increase the price. But if the years remaining are few, you shall reduce the price, because it's the number of crops that he's selling to you. You shall not wrong one another, but you shall fear your God with profound reverence, for I am the Lord your God. So you're not just doing this because it's fair. You're doing this as an act of worship and reverence unto the Lord, that I'm not going to take advantage of people because I want to honor the Lord. Plain and simple. Therefore, you shall carry out my statutes, my ordinances, and do them, so that you may live securely in the land. I want to say this. So the Lord is giving them a promise here that if you will obey my commands, you will do well in the land. So I wrote in my Bible here, it is obedience that keeps us here. So if God has been faithful to you, which I'm sure he has, he's given you a house, he's given you he's given you a family, he's given you property, he's given you business, all these things, he's made you successful. You holding on to those things in your life is contingent upon you obeying the Lord. Let's look at it really practically. God is faithful enough to give us spouses. If we are faithful to obey his commands, i.e. we are faithful to our spouses, we are not abusive to our spouses, we are kind and loving and generous to them, then we get to hold on to those things. We get to hold on to our spouse. But if you're going to be a jerkwad and you're going to become abusive, or you're going to cheat on your spouse, then the thing which the Lord gave you may end up being taken back from you, i.e. you get a divorce for these different things. God does not want that in the slightest, but it is your obedience that keeps you in that place. And so as long as I am obedient to the Lord, I'm following his commands, I don't have to fear about anybody taking what the Lord has given to me. And so that's just a promise that the Lord gives us. And I think it's true for us today as well. Then the land will yield its produce so that you can eat your fill and live securely on it. Again, the Lord's promising security here. And if you say, what are we going to eat in the seventh year if we do not sow seed or gather in our crops? So think about it like this. You have 7 years, and then on the seventh year, you have a Sabbath year. Well, after 7 of those, you have the 49th year. This is divisible by 7, so this is a Sabbath year. Then the very next year is also the year of Jubilee, which is technically a Sabbath year. So now 2 years in a row, there's been no planting, and there has been no harvesting of what is out in the field. And then it's not as if, January 1st hits and suddenly we have all this food. You actually then need food to make it to the 51st year. So this is 3 years where we're not going to have food because we didn't plant at the beginning of this year or the beginning of this year. And so the Lord is answering that exact question here. What are we going to eat in the 7th year if we do not sow seed or gather in our crops? Then this is my answer. I will order my special blessing for you in the 6th year. So this would be the 48th year, let's call it. The 6th of that particular 7. My special blessing so that it will produce sufficient crops for 3 years. So the Lord is going to cause so much to be grown in the 4th year that it's not only going to be enough for 48 to 49, but it's also enough for 49 to 50 and 50 to 51 when you start to plant again and then harvest by the end of that year. So the Lord is faithful to, he's not just, he's not a cruel God who's, saying, I'm going to tax you, but I'm also not going to cause your income to increase. That's what dictators do. I'm not giving you a chance for you to make any more money, but now you owe me more. The Lord is so faithful that if he's giving you 2 years of rest, 2 years where you don't have to plant, the land gets its rest, but he's not only doing that where he gives you 2 years off, but he's going to make sure there's so much that comes in the 48th year. I'm just now realizing I've been drawing on top of my face here. So much that comes in the 48th year that you'll have enough for 3 years. I'm going to move it down. So we have 48, we have 49th year, we have the 50th year, and we have the 51st year. The Lord will cause so much blessing based off of their obedience to have years of Jubilee for these years, I guess just the 50th year and the Sabbath year, that 3 years of crops are going to come in to get them all the way to the 51st year. Isn't that amazing the way God does that? When you're sowing the 8th year, you can still eat old things from the crops, eating until the 9th year when the crops come in. So all the way into, so that'd be 1, 2, into the 9th year. I wrote 58. The Lord's faithful, and he's not going to put some sort of tax on you or put something heavy on you and not give you the strength or the provision to stay alive during those times. And so God's very, very faithful in that way. Now, when it comes to, I used to think about this a lot when I was living in Oklahoma. I wasn't around farmers, but I was around ranchers. And I was thinking then about like, should we do this today? Maybe you're a farmer and you're listening to this. I'm not going to tell you what to do, because again, this is Old Testament. I'm not sure where this would fall in the fulfillment of Christ. Of course, Christ is our Sabbath. My message would be this, that if you are faithful to do what God's asked you to do, if you feel conviction to do this, then know with certainty that the Lord's going to take care of you. And so give it a shot. Start with one field if you want to. We're not going to plant anything in this field this year. We're just going to let it rest. We're going to expect great things the year before and great things the year after. You know, once you build your faith, do it with the whole farm. You never know what God can do. And so either way, God honors faithfulness. And I think that's an enormous act of faithfulness. So think about it. If you live up here in Lake Tahoe where you can't hardly grow anything because we're at 6,200 feet, then I guess move on to the next section. The land shall not be sold permanently, for the land is mine. You are only foreigners and temporary residents with me. So there's no expectation that if the tribe of Benjamin sells 20 acres to the tribe of Dan, that they get to keep it infinitum. It's going to go back to them in the year of Jubilee. Or they can redeem it. You know, they can buy it back. They can mortgage it back. So in all the country that you possess, you are to provide for the redemption of the land in the year of Jubilee. If a fellow countryman of yours becomes so poor he has to sell some of his property, then his nearest relative is to come and buy back, redeem what his relative has sold. Or in case of a man who has no relative to redeem his property, he has become more prosperous, and he has enough to buy it back. Then he shall calculate the years since its sale, refund the balance to the man whom he sold it, and so return it to his ancestral property. So it's not like things that are sold can't be bought back before the year of Jubilee. You can buy it back. That's what the Lord's saying. But if he is unable to redeem, then what he has sold shall remain in the hand of the purchaser until the year of Jubilee. But at the Jubilee it shall revert, and it may return to his property. If a man sells a house in a walled city, then his right of redemption remains valid for 1 year after its sale, but his right of redemption lasts a full year. But if it is not redeemed for him within a full year, then the house that is in the walled city passes permanently and irrevocably to the purchaser throughout his generations. It does not revert back to them in the year of Jubilee. Now, I looked this up earlier because I was like, okay, why is it only houses that are in walled cities that cannot be redeemed back after another year and cannot revert back in the year of Jubilee? Mostly it's because the same reason why we have city people and we have country people today. That city people typically don't have any land, and so all of their wealth and their business is tied up in their home, literally their house. Whereas when it came to property is a different story. And so if you sold a house at that time, because those were typically foreigners, those were typically people that immigrated in, those were a lot of times not Hebrews, and a lot of times those were businesses that were set up in those homes as well. Once it was sold, it was sold. Like, you don't have to worry about trying to find a new place for your business every, 50th year or whatever. Or that somebody might come back and forcibly, redeem their house back. You don't have to worry about that. The houses of the villages that have no surrounding walls, however, shall be considered as open fields. They may be redeemed and revert in the year of Jubilee. So, as to the cities of the Levites have permanent right of redemption for the houses in the cities which they possess. The Levites weren't given any land because their possession was the Lord. They were to, your inheritance is the house of God. So you don't get any ancestral land like the tribe of Benjamin, the tribe of Dan, the tribe of Naphtali, all these different ones. The Levites, they had the house of God. And so if they didn't have their own residence, then they didn't have anything. And so at any time, if a Levite was to, for whatever reason, become poor enough to have to sell his house, at any time when he's ready, he could come back and redeem the house. Therefore, what is purchased from the Levites may be redeemed by a Levite, and the house that was sold in the city they possess reverts in the year of Jubilee. For the houses in the Levite cities are their ancestral property among the Israelites. But the pasture lands of their cities may not be sold, for that is their permanent possession. So a lot of times Levites would be given cows and cattle. They weren't supposed to go out and buy it themselves. The people were supposed to give it to the temple, and they needed places to keep those animals alive. And so the land that surrounded the cities that the Levites and the homes that the Levites were given was never to be sold, because really it belonged to the Lord. And so it just stayed with them all the time. Now, if your fellow countryman has become poor and his hand falters with you so that he has trouble repaying you for something, then you are to help and sustain him. Someone defaults on a loan, then, help him out. Then you are to help and sustain him with courtesy and consideration, like you would a stranger or temporary resident without property, so that he may live among you. Do not charge him usurious interest, but fear your God with profound reverence, so that your countrymen may continue to live among you. You shall not give him your money at interest, nor your food at profit. So if you're selling food from a poor person, from you to a poor person, you're not supposed to take a profit. You're supposed to sell it at cost. And if somebody needs to borrow $1,000, they don't have to pay you $1,200 back. They just have to give you $1,000 back. And it's why a lot of even modern day Jewish families do very well working with other Jewish families, because they don't charge each other interest. They don't get caught in back loans and back payments and everything, because they're working together as, really their own nation, their own tribe, to advance together. I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt to give you the land of Canaan, and to be your God. If your fellow countryman becomes so poor in his dealings that he sells himself to you as payment for a debt, you shall not let him do the work of a slave who is ineligible for redemption. But he is to be with you as a hired man, and if he were a temporary resident, he shall serve with you until the year of Jubilee. Then he shall leave you, he and his children with him, and shall go back to his own family and return to the property of his fathers. For the Israelites are my servants, whom I brought out of the land of Egypt. They shall not be sold in a slave sale. The Lord's saying that all of you belong to me, all the property belongs to me, and this is the way I want to run things. When someone runs out of money, they have to sell themselves as an indentured servant. They're not going to do the lowest work. They're going to be treated rightly. They're going to eventually get to go home in the year of Jubilee as well. You shall not rule over him with harshness, severity, oppression, but you are to fear your God with profound reverence. As for your male and female slaves whom you may have, you may acquire male and female slaves from the pagan nations that are around you. I don't think God is in favor of slavery at any time ever. God does not enjoy it, but the Lord does often allow the consequences of our own actions to fall on us. And so if you're going to be a pagan nation, you're going to live far from the Lord. You're going to do what you want. You're going to serve these disgusting gods, and you're going to not come under his protection. So someday you're going to be overrun. And part of sacrificing to demons and doing all this stuff is that you may find yourself someday as a slave. If you live apart from the Lord long enough, you're going to find yourself being slave to something else. And so if we would actually make ourselves slaves to the Lord, if we would become his sons and daughters, then we wouldn't have to worry about any of this. And so do you want to live the way the pagan nations do, maybe become a slave, or do you want to be living in my blessing and live by faith? You may acquire male and female slaves from the pagan nations that are around you. Moreover, from the children of the strangers who live as aliens among you, from them you may buy slaves, and from their families who are with you, whom they have produced in your land, and they become your possession. You may even bequeath them as an inheritance to your children after you to receive as a possession. You can use them as permanent slaves, but in respect to your fellow countrymen, the children of Israel, I don't know why I said true. You shall not rule over one another with harshness, severity, or oppression. So again, there are some things that the Lord's establishing in this community that you did this before and you will never do it again. You shall never sacrifice to other gods, period. But slavery was ubiquitous over the entire world. It doesn't excuse it. But instead of the Lord coming in and saying, no more slaves ever, the Lord's slowly going to institute laws and rules and regulations and compassion and courtesy to the point where really having a slave is unheard of. And, we start to see it the way the Lord does. Man, these are long chapters. Okay. Of redeeming a poor man, this is verse 47. Now, if the financial means of a stranger, temporary resident among you becomes sufficient, and your fellow countryman becomes poor in comparison to him, and sells himself to the stranger who is living among you, or the descendants of a stranger's family. So this is an Israelite selling themselves to, an Egyptian that's living among the Israelites, which was totally allowed. Anyone was allowed to come in and live as part of the Israelite nation and be under the blessing of God if they would obey God the way, Moses is telling them. Then after he's sold, he shall have the right of redemption. One of his relatives may redeem him, whether his uncle or his uncle's sons may redeem him, or one of his blood relatives from his family may redeem him, or if he prospers, he may redeem himself. Then he or his redeemer shall calculate with his purchaser from the year when he sold himself to the purchaser to the year of Jubilee, and the original price of his sale shall be adjusted according to the number of years. The time he was in his with his owner shall be considered as that of a hired man. So think about if I owe someone $10,000, okay? I owe someone $10,000. I say, I can't pay it to you, but I will become a hired servant for you. And then 10 years goes by, and my cousin, who's doing pretty well, he says, I actually want to redeem you so that you don't have to be a slave anymore, a hired servant anymore. I've worked for this person for 10 years. There's a good chance I've worked off all of that $10,000. So the price to redeem me at that point would be, a couple $100. But if my cousin comes along after 6 months of me trying to pay off this $10,000, $100,000 debt or whatever it is, then the price to redeem me is going to be much higher. So the Lord's wanting them to factor in all the time that they worked for you as well. He's trying to make things fair. If there are still many years before the year of Jubilee, in proportion to them, you must refund to the purchaser part of the price of his sale for his redemption and his release. And so there's a lot of years left until the year of Jubilee when I would naturally go home. Then the price is going to be higher. There are only a few years remain until the year of Jubilee. He shall so calculate it with him is to refund the proportionate amount for his release. Like a hired man, year by year, he shall deal with him. He shall not rule over him with harshness in your sight. So the Lord is instituting these little rules that okay, if you're going to have slaves, you're going to treat them kindly. You're going to treat them with value. You're going to treat them like a human being. You're not going to be harsh with them. You're going to provide food for them. In some cases with the Levites, you're even going to treat them like they're a member of the family and they get to eat the bread from your table. And so None of this would have been true in Egypt. None of this would have been true with the Canaanites. You could kill, you can maim, you could do whatever you wanted to your slave at any point for all these other nations. And the Lord's saying, you're not going to do that. And in fact, I'm going to put all of these stipulations on you to make it even harder and harder for you to have slaves in the first place. Even if he's not redeemed during these years and goes under the provisions, then he shall go free in the year of Jubilee, the 50th year, he and his children with him. For the children of Israel are my servants whom I brought out of the land of Egypt. I'm the Lord your God. It's a little bit like saying you can trade your toys among yourselves. If you have kids, they can trade their toys among themselves all that they want. But if mom comes home and says, give all the toys back, it's not because any of their deals were unfair. It's because she bought all the toys and really they all belong to her. So if she wants them to go back to their original owners for whatever purpose, then she can do that. It's the same thing with the Lord here. So, okay, that's chapter 25. We're going to go through two more chapters. Chapter 26 is particularly interesting. I really like this one. Because this not only gives us a glimpse into how faithful and how wonderful the Lord is, but how much the Israelites are going to endure in the coming years. So I'm going to try to keep account here. So in this chapter, we're going to go through all of the, or not all of, but a lot of the blessings that come with following after this covenant to, loving the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, your mind, and your strength, and loving your neighbor as yourself. If you can do those two things, then all the blessings that are about to come, that we're about to read, will come upon you. But if you want to worship other gods, you want to offer stupid sacrifices, you want to do the disgusting things that I just told you not to do in chapters 15 through 20, then you don't get to be under my protection anymore. You don't want me, then I'm out. That's what the Lord's saying. Like, I'm the one protecting you. I'm the one giving you this land. I'm the one that pulled you out of slavery. I'm the one that bought you. I'm the one that did all of these things for you, who carried you like a child through the desert, like a father carries a child. If you don't want any of that, then all the natural consequences of living apart from me, if you don't want life, then death is what you get. And so we're going to keep account of the blessings and curses. And you're going to see very quickly that the curses outnumber the blessings like 10 to 1 sometimes. And that's not because the curses are so much worse than the blessings are good, but I think because in the few things that God is describing, his faithfulness and his love and his blessing is so extravagant that it can make up for, a dozen curses. And so it's pretty amazing. And they build on themselves as they go too. So Moses is now reiterating what he said before, because he knows exactly what they want to do. He knows exactly what their propensity is to do, which is this. Verse 1, chapter 26, you shall not make idols for yourselves, nor shall you erect an image, a sacred pillar, or an obelisk, nor shall you place any figured stone in your land, so that you may bow down to it, for I am the Lord your God. He's like, I know this is what you want to do. I know you're thinking about it right now. You're thinking about what kind of shapes you can make them in. You're thinking about all the things that were in Egypt. Don't do it. Don't do it. You shall keep my Sabbaths and have reverence for my sanctuary. I am the Lord. Why is he saying have reverence for my sanctuary? Think about it like this. I would teach it to my youth kids that like the level of idolatry that they were involved in is, okay, I film the Amplified podcast in the sanctuary, the balcony of our church here in Lake Tahoe. It's a beautiful sanctuary. It's been here since 1964. It's a big A-frame church. I say big. It's an A-frame church. It's beautiful in here. This has been the place where people worship God for 62 years now. It's phenomenal. I love it. This is God's house. We worship God. We don't worship you. We don't worship any other gods. We don't hardly even breathe their names. We worship Yahweh here, Father, Son, and Spirit. But think about it like this. Imagine if next Sunday I said, hey, we're actually going to open up the door. We're going to be a little bit more tolerant to all these other cultures. And we're going to have our Christian service here in the morning, but here in the evening. But if you want to come back Monday morning, we're going to have a Hindu service here, and there's going to be a shrine set up on stage. We're going to have incense burning. We're going to sacrifice a small cow in front of the altar. We're going to wipe its blood on different things. And then on Tuesday, you can come in and we're going to have a Muslim ceremony where we're going to, we're going to get rid of all the chairs. We're going to have mats. We're going to do the prayers 3 times a day. And we're going to start to set up idols, and then we'll have our Christian service on Sunday evenings as normal. That's basically what they were doing to the temple of God. That by the time Jeremiah rolls around, they have so many false idols, so many false worship things, so many false prophets, false priests. They are sacrificing to all of these false gods in God's house. So I would tell my youth kids, imagine if I showed up next week and I said, hey, I'm actually going to let you know that I'm leaving my wife, and you guys get to witness a ceremony where I'm going to marry a Hindu Muslim. And we're going to say 3 chants together. We're going to worship their God and then our God. And then I'm going to sacrifice a pig in front of all of you guys. And we're going to burn some incense as well. And we're going to do tattoos, and we're going to cut ourselves at the end before we leave. That's exactly what they were doing in God's house. So when you start to see, like, how could God be so... how could these curses be so heavy? It's because this is what they were involved in. And you think God is marrying himself to Israel. He's saying, regardless of what you do, I'm going to love you. I want to be like a father to you. I want to be like a husband to you. I want to be your savior. All of these metaphors. So if you're going to reject the Lord and you're going to fill his house, our house, with all these other false idols, it is on par with... this idolatry and this false God worship is on par with cheating in a marriage. That's how God sees it. And so the Lord's saying, if you don't want me to be your husband, you don't want me to take care of you, then my protection comes off of you. And this is what happens when my protection comes off of you. And so all of this is going to be pertinent as we read through chapter 26, but I just want you to have kind of a framework for what's going on here. Wow, this is probably going to be my longest episode ever. We're already at 41 minutes. Okay. Shall keep my Sabbaths, reverence my sanctuary. I am the Lord. If you walk in my statutes and keep my commands and obediently do them, then I will give you rain in its season. I will control the weather on your behalf. The land will yield her produce, and the trees of the field bear her fruits. I will control nature on your behalf. Your threshing season will last until grape gathering, and the grape gathering time will last until the planting. I will make sure your crops are good. You will eat bread and be filled and live securely in your land. I think that's promise 4 and 5. I will make sure you live securely where you are. I will grant you peace in the land. Another blessing. So that you may lie down and there will be no one to make you afraid. I will eliminate harmful animals from the land, and no sword shall pass through your land. So 7 and 8, I'll make sure that the wild animals are controlled on your behalf. I'll make sure that foreign enemies don't come in and fight you. And you will chase your enemies, and they will fall down before you. I will give you victory in battle. 5 of you will chase 100, and 100 of you will put 10,000 to flight. So even if you're vastly outnumbered, I will make sure that you win. For I will turn toward you with favor and For I will turn toward you with favor and regard, and make you fruitful and multiply you, and I will establish and confirm my covenant with you. So I wrote that down as 2 blessings. So he's going to turn his face toward us and make us fruitful, but he's also going to confirm and establish his covenant with us. You will eat the old supply of abundant produce and clear out to make old room for the new. I guess that's an extra one that I didn't write down. So that's 13. I will make my dwelling place among you. My soul will not reject or separate itself from you. I will be with you all the time, the Lord is saying. And I will walk among you and be your God, and you shall be my people. So that's 15 phenomenal blessings. This isn't just, hey, you won't get sick very often. This is, I will control heaven and earth and the ground itself on your behalf if you will be faithful to do the things that I'm saying. And again, we see a lot of sacrifices here, but it all boils down to love me and love the people around you. How hard is that? It's not that hard, okay? But let's go through the penalties of disobedience, as it says. But if you do not obey me and do not obediently do all these commands, if instead you reject my statutes, your soul rejects my ordinances, so that you will not obediently do all my commands, and in this way break my covenant, I will in turn do this to you. I will appoint over you sudden terror, consumption, and fever will waste away your eyes and cause your soul to languish as well. So we'll call that 3. You will sow your seed uselessly. Again, God created the heavens and the earth. He's the one that gives life to plants. If you don't want me, then you don't get the life that I bring to your crops either. For your enemies will eat what you plant. So even what comes up, you don't get to eat it. Your enemies are going to come in and take it from you. I will set my face against you. That's certainly a curse. And you will be struck down before your enemies, so you'll lose in battle. Those who hate you will rule over you, and you will flee when no one is pursuing you. Already 9 curses. And if you have an Amplified Bible, through a lot of these, you're going to see like this ends with 1 Samuel 4:10 and 31 and 1. It's perfect examples of like you rejected the ordinances, and it's giving like a hyperlink to where this happened in their future. So if you don't listen to any of those things, those don't wake you up and get your attention, those 9 curses. If in spite of all this, verse 18, you still will not listen to me and be obedient, then I will punish you 7 times more for your sins. So it's possible that those count only as 7 there, but I'm going to count it as 9 because it's pretty bad. I will break your pride in power, and I will make the sky like iron, giving no rain and blocking all your prayers, and your ground like bronze, hard to plow and yielding no produce. That happened in 1 Kings 17 and 1. We'll count that as 2 curses. Your strength will be spent uselessly, for your land will not yield its produce, and the trees of the land will not yield their fruits. Another curse. If then you act with hostility toward me, and you are unwilling to obey me, I will increase the plague upon you 7 times in accordance with your sins. So you're going to be sick all the time. I will let loose the wild animals of the field among you, which will bereave you of your children and destroy your livestock. So we'll count that as 2 more curses. Destroy your livestock and make you so few in number that your roads will lie deserted and desolate. And if by these things you are not turned to me, but act with hostility against me. So if none of these things wake you up, then we're going to move forward. Then I will act with hostility against you, and I will strike you 7 times for your sins, 7 more times. I will bring sword on you that will execute vengeance for breaking the covenant. So other people are going to come in, and they're going to take over your land, and they're going to take over your cities, and you're going to die in the process. And when you gather together in your cities, I will send pestilence. So even if you do find safety in a city, there's going to be disease among you. And you shall be handed over to the enemy. Again, another curse. When I break your staff of bread, that is, cut off your food supply. Another curse. 10 women will bake bread in one oven. So many houses will be destroyed that we're all going to be sharing one group oven that just burns all the time. Will bake your bread in one oven, and even the bread that comes out will have to be rationed, and you will eat and not be satisfied. Another curse. Yet, if in spite of all this, you will not attentively listen to me, but act with hostility against me. Again, the Lord's not saying, if you break my covenant once, suddenly all these things are going to happen. These are going to happen in succession. And at any time, you can turn your face back to me. You can worship me. You can repent for the things you did wrong. You can put away your idols. And then all of these blessings will come back. At any time, you can turn around. But the Lord's saying, if these 7 don't get your attention, then 7 more will come. If those 7 don't get your attention, then 7 worse ones will come. And now we're at 7 far worse ones. Yet if in spite of this, you will not attentively listen to me, but act with hostility against me, then I will act with hostility against you in wrath, and I will punish you 7 times for your sin. Verse 29, you will eat the flesh of your sons and your daughters. Horrible curse. If you do not turn to me, then things are going to get bad enough. You're going to be siege. Your city's going to be under siege by another people group for long enough. You're going to starve to the point where you turn to cannibalism. This happens throughout history where people reject the Lord. They reject the blessings of God. They don't want anything to do with him. They don't like what God says. And so over time, this is where we end up. I will destroy your high places. All the things that you enjoyed about worship, I'll destroy. And cut down your incense altars and heap your dead bodies upon the crushed bodies of your idols. So as they're piling up all of your false idols, they're going to be piling up your dead bodies as well. Upon the crushed bodies of your idols, my soul will detest you with deep and unutterable loathing. So we'll count that as 2 more curses. God detesting us, like if we're going to get into the debauchery of all the things we talked about in the last few episodes, chapters 15 through 20, if you want to do those things, then this is where it ends. I will lay waste to your cities and make your sanctuaries desolate. 2 more curses. And I will not smell your sweet and soothing aromas of offerings by fire. What's crazy is like I said, if I said, hey, we're going to have our Christian service on Sunday nights, but on Mondays, we're going to have a Hindu service. On Tuesdays, we're going to have a Zoroastrian get together. On Thursdays, we're going to have a New Age get together, all this stuff. But we're going to keep having our normal services and worshiping God as if nothing's wrong on Sunday nights. That's exactly what they were doing. They're worshiping all these other gods, but then they're still going through all the motions of the sacrifices for the Lord. Sometimes they would forget him entirely. And the Lord's saying that, like, if you're going to be obedient to me, then be completely obedient to me. It's like a husband that still wants to sleep with his wife one night a week when he's sleeping around in 6 other places the other nights of the week. Like, I don't care about your sacrifices if you're going to be doing all this other stuff. That's what the Lord's saying. I will make the land desolate, and your enemies who settle in it will be appalled at it. I will scatter you among the nations and draw out the sword of your enemies after you. Let's call that 2 more curses. And the land will become desolate, and the cities will become ruins. We'll just do 1. Those kind of feel like they're together. Then the land of Israel will enjoy its Sabbaths as long as it lies desolate, while you and your enemies land. Then the land will rest and enjoy its Sabbath. So they're every 7th year, like we said, they're supposed to let the land have its own rest. They're not supposed to plant anything. Well, it's about 650 years. So roughly, we'll say plus or minus 650 years from the time Joshua walks them into Canaan for the first time to the year 586 BC, where the last of the Israelites are taken into Babylonian captivity. So exactly what this is saying, another nation will come in with the sword and take you away. It's about 650 years. If we're going to give them the benefit of the doubts, let's say for about 150 years, 160 years, they got it right. They did do the things that God was telling them. They did give the year its Sabbath rest. It's very interesting because that leaves roughly 490 years where they did not give the land its Sabbath rest, and they live in Babylonian captivity for 70 years. For 70 years in a row, the land is able to rest. So that's what it's saying. Then the land of Israel will enjoy its Sabbath as long as it lies desolate while you're in your enemy's land. Then the land will finally have its rest and enjoy its Sabbaths. So I think the Lord was deliberate in having them stay in Babylon for 70 years because there were 70 times where they were supposed to give the land its rest, and they never did. 490 years you ignored my word. So it's not like the Lord's saying, like, if we get things wrong for the next 10 years, then the Lord's going to take us off in judgment. No, the Lord gave them 500 years, twice the age of the country that I'm sitting in right now, to get things right. They didn't get him right for 490 years, and the Lord said, that's enough. You don't want to give the land its rest? I will give the land its rest. 70 years in Babylon. So that's just a little bit behind the scenes Bible there for you. As long as it lies desolate, it will have rest, the rest that it did not have on your Sabbaths while you were living in it. As for those who are left of you, I will bring despair, a lack of courage, and weakness. That's another curse. Into their hearts and into the lands of their enemies. The sound of a scattered leaf will put them to flight, and they will flee as if running from the sword and fall even when no one is chasing them. We'll group those together in one curse. They shall stumble over one another as if to escape from a sword when no one is chasing them, and you will have no power to stand before your enemies. We'll do that one more. You will perish among the nations, and your enemies will consume you. 2 more curses. Those of you who are left will rot away because of their wickedness in the lands of your enemies. Also because of the wickedness of their forefathers, they will rot away like them. If they confess their wickedness and the wickedness of their forefathers. Okay, this is where it's turning here. So we have 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 38 curses so far. 38 curses. And really, it's just storytelling. If you don't follow after me, these are the things that are going to happen. But it kind of switches here in verse 40. If they confess their wickedness and the wickedness of their forefathers, in their unfaithfulness which they have committed against me, and also in their acting of hostility toward me, I also was acting with hostility toward them and brought them into the land of their enemies. Then if their uncircumcised, their sin-filled hearts are humbled, and they accept the punishment for their wickedness, then I will remember my covenant with Jacob, my covenant with Isaac, my covenant with Abraham, and remember the land. So if you would just turn your face back toward me, if you would admit to me that you've been sacrificing these false idols and turn away from it, then I will bring you back into the land and prosper you. But the land will be abandoned by them and will enjoy its Sabbath. So now Moses is saying this in the future tense as if like this is actually going to happen. So it's not like it and if anymore. Moses knows this is going to happen. The land will be abandoned by them and will enjoy its Sabbaths while they will accept the punishment for their wickedness and make amends because they rejected my ordinances and their soul rejected my statutes. Yet in spite of this, when they are in the land of their enemies, I will not reject them, nor will I so despise them as to destroy them. So I will leave some of you alive. I will allow a remnant to remain, breaking my as to destroy them, breaking my covenant with them, for I am the Lord their God. But I will, for their sake, earnestly remember the covenant with their forefathers, whom I brought out of the land of Egypt in the sight of the nations, that I might be their God. I am the Lord. So the Lord always leaves a remnant alive. He always leaves the faithful. A lot of times he leaves the poorest of the people. We're going to see later on where God does execute this judgment, and they are dragged away to Babylon. But the poorest of the peoples that were homeless, the ones that were completely rejected by society, they're literally overlooked by the Babylonians, and they get to stay in Israel, and they get to just move into these mansions because they were already, they may have been guilty, but the Lord kind of sees, their poverty is already paying for their wickedness. So the Lord leaves a remnant alive. And the Lord will leave the faithful alive as well. These are the statutes, ordinances, and laws which the Lord has established between himself and the Israelites through Moses at Mount Sinai. So, a lot said there in Leviticus 26. Leviticus 27, I'm going to run through pretty quickly. It's all about redemption. So, basically, chapter 27 is about this. There's an old episode of MASH where this soldier is wounded. He's brought into the MASH unit, and he wants to talk to the chaplain. This would have been Father Mulcahy. Wants to talk to the chaplain. And he tells the chaplain, when I was in the foxhole, I was scared to death. Bullets are flying over my head. My buddies are dying on the left and right. And I promised God that if he would get me out of here alive, I would become a priest. And now it's funny because he's telling this to a man who is a priest, but he's telling him, God did get me out alive, and I don't want to be a priest. God God held up his end of the deal, but I'm not wanting to hold up my end of the deal. And Father Mulcahy he's a great chaplain because he basically said the grace of God is sufficient. It's like he understands. Like, it's not right that you're breaking this covenant, and he will absolutely honor you and do great things for you if you do hold up your end of the deal and become a priest. But the Lord is also fully understanding. This is talking about the exact same thing. That there are going to be times where in haste, you're just going to make a promise to God. Like, if God will get me out of this, I'll become a priest. I'll give my whole life to this. And then God does, and you're like, oh shoot, now I have to hold up my end of the deal. Well, the Lord is giving them a way for basically them to get out of those kind of hasty deals where you don't get out of it scot-free like they did in that episode of MASH, but the Lord's going to give them a way to redeem themselves. So throughout this, you're going to see where so-and-so makes a deal and they give themselves in service to the Lord. They give their animal in service to the Lord, but they actually don't want to hold up their end of the deal. Well, the Lord says, if you give me 50 shekels, we'll call it good. But the thing that let's say you promise to give me a cow, you need the cow back. You give me 30 shekels or whatever it is. That cow is now, it's different from the rest of the cows. It doesn't get to be sold off. That one belongs to you. Like, it's special. So the Lord's faithful. He's very understanding. So I'm going to go through this pretty fast, and I'll definitely stop at the second to last verse because I learned something very interesting. So chapter 27, we saw 15 blessings. 15 blessings on behalf of the Lord that were phenomenal for obeying his commands, and 38 that were particularly horrible. But the blessings of God always outweigh the curses. And so it's up to you. Do you want to honor the Lord or not? Chapter 27, the final chapter of Leviticus. Here we go. Again, the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, speak to the children of Israel and say to them, when a man makes a special vow, like we said, consecrating himself or a member of his family, he shall be valued according to your established system of valuation of your people, belonging to the Lord. That is, a priest accepts from the man making the vow a specified amount of money for the temple treasury in place of the actual person. So instead of me having to become a priest, I give 50 shekels. That's bottom line. If your valuation of a male between 20 and 60 years of age, then your valuation shall be 50 shekels of silver, according to the shekel of the sanctuary. Or if the person is a female between those ages, then your valuation shall be 30 shekels. The Lord is in no way saying that women are worth less than men, but just that the work that they would provide on behalf of the temple is there's less that they could do according to the law. And so the price that they would have to pay to redeem themselves is less, because they wouldn't have been able to help with a lot of the things that the Levites did. They probably would have been doing smaller tasks. So the price to redeem themselves is less. But the Lord is not saying that they're worth anything less, just that the value of work that they bring is worth a little less. If the person is between 5 and 20 years of age, then your valuation of a male shall be 20 shekels, for the female 10 shekels. But if the child is between 1 month and 5 years of age, then your valuation shall be 5 shekels of silver for the male and 3 shekels for the female. So a great example is Samuel is born to Hannah after she promised to give him to the Lord if she would grant her a son. She wanted a son for a long time. If she so desired, she could have redeemed him for, at a very young age, 5 shekels of silver, but she held up her end of the deal, and she gave her son in service to the Lord to the temple. And Samuel, as we know, became this incredible man of God who not only brought judgment on the current priesthood, which was Eli, but he's the one who anointed King Saul. He's the one who anointed King David. God honors the faithfulness in holding up your end of the deal. If the person is 60 years old or above, your valuation shall be 15 shekels for the male, 10 shekels for the female. But if the person is too poor to pay your valuation, then he shall be placed before the priest, and the priest shall value him according to the ability of the one who vowed. The priest shall value him. So if they can't pay, the priest can make, a smaller valuation if they want to. Now, if it is an animal of the kind which men can present as an offering to the Lord, any such one that gives to the Lord shall be holy. So if I need to, according to the law, give a cow to the Lord, but my family actually really needs this cow, I can buy it back and give, money. He shall not replace it or exchange it, good or bad, or bad for good. But if he does exchange an animal for an animal, then they shall both the original offering and the substitute shall be holy. So if you don't have money, again, you can't give, a sickly cow in favor for the good cow that you gave the Lord. It's got to be an even exchange here. If it is any unclean animal of the kind which men do not present as an offering to the Lord, then he shall bring an animal before the priest, and the priest shall value it as either good or bad. It shall be as you, the priest, value it. But if he ever wishes to redeem it, then he shall add 1/5 to your valuation. So I don't understand that part as much, but if someone wanted to give their lizard, I guess, they really cared about their lizard, but they also wanted it back, they can redeem it back. And the Lord's saying just add 20% to it because it's an unclean animal. If a man consecrates his house as sacred to the Lord, the priest shall appraise it as either good or bad. And if the priest appraise it, so it shall stand. If the one who consecrates his house wishes to redeem it, then his house, he shall add 1/5 of your valuation price to it so that it may be his. So for whatever reason, you promise to give your house to the priesthood, but you actually want to keep living in that house, then the priest would come, he would value the house, and then you would give that value plus 20% to the priesthood, which sounds unfair, 20% add-on, but maybe you shouldn't frivolously make promises to give away your house if you don't actually want to give away your house. So, and if a man consecrates to the Lord part of a field of his own property, then the valuation shall be proportionate to the seed needed for it. A homer of barley seed shall be valued at 50 shekels of silver. If he consecrates his field during the year of Jubilee, it shall stand according to the valuation. But if he consecrates his field after the year of Jubilee, then the priest shall calculate the price for him in proportion to the years that remain until the year of Jubilee. It shall be deducted from your valuation. So there's a lot of years left. It's worth more. If there's not very much, then it's worth less. The one who consecrates the field should ever wish to redeem it, he shall add 1/5 of the appraisal price to it so that it may return to him. So you can buy it back for what it's worth plus 20%. So don't frivolously promise things to give to the Lord if you're just going to, want it back later. If he does not redeem the field, but has sold it to another man, if he does not redeem the field, but has sold it to another man, it may no longer be redeemed. No longer be redeemed. I don't really know what that verse means. Verse 20. 21, when the field reverts in the year of Jubilee, the field shall be holy to the Lord, like a field set apart, devoted to the priest, shall possess it as his property. So, I'm trying to think of a situation where this would happen. Verse 21. If you understand it, please let me know in the comments. Okay. Or if a man consecrates to the Lord a field which he has brought, which is not part of the field of his ancestral property, the priest shall calculate for him the amount of your valuation up to the year of Jubilee, and the man shall give that amount on the day as a holy thing unto the Lord. In the year of Jubilee, the field shall return to the one for whom it was purchased, to whom the land belonged as his ancestral inheritance. Every valuation of yours shall be in accordance with the sanctuary shekel. 20 gerahs shall make a shekel. So the Lord's also trying to stabilize the economy and prevent ridiculous inflation or deflation. So the Lord's an economist at the same time. He's very smart. However, the firstborn among animals, which is the firstborn, belongs to the Lord. No man may consecrate whether an ox or a sheep. It is already the Lord. So you can't say, Lord, I promise you, if you do this for me, I'll give you the first of my flock next season. Lord's saying, those already belong to me. So that's a bad deal. So it's going to have to be something else. If it is among the unclean animals, the owner may redeem it in accordance with your valuation, add 1/5 to it, or if it is not redeemed, then it shall be sold in accordance to your valuation. So if somebody gives their, let's say they have a pet eagle and they give it to the Lord for whatever reason, they can redeem it back for whatever it's worth plus 20%. But if they don't, then we don't need a bunch of eagles here in the temple. We're just going to sell it off for what we value it. But nothing that a man sets apart that is devoted as an offering to the Lord out of all that he has, of man or animal or of the fields or his own property, shall be sold or redeemed. Anything that is devoted to destruction, banned, is most holy to the Lord. So what is that meaning? But nothing that a man sets apart, that is, devotes as an offering to the Lord of all that he has, of man or of animal or the fields or his property, shall be sold or redeemed. Sets apart. Anything devoted to destruction, banned, is most holy to the Lord. So soon they're going to go into Jericho. Jericho is meant to be completely consecrated to the Lord. You're not to take a single shekel as plunder when they conquer Jericho. None of it can be redeemed. None of it can be bought back for anything. And I think this is also saying that devotes as an offering to the Lord. I'm not sure what the difference between devotes as an offering is in the rest of what we've been talking about. So I think it's talking about the difference between you're giving this as an offering versus you're making it like a vow. So I promise to give you this later on. That's different than you bringing like a sin offering. It can't be redeemed. A sin offering or a guilt offering, that's not meant to be redeemed. It's meant to be sacrificed because you made a mistake. You sinned for whatever reason. So those things can't be redeemed. No one who may be set apart from among men shall be ransomed from death. He shall most certainly be put to death. So if you murder someone, you can't be redeemed back. You have to die. So, we talked about laws being set up. There's no bribe. There's no redemption price there's no amount of money you can pay that can get this person out of trouble. That's what the Lord's saying. And all the tithe, the 10th part of the land, whether the seed of the land or the fruit of the tree is the Lord's, it's holy to the Lord. So the first 10% of what you make it belongs to the Lord. So we give it back as an act of obedience, as remembering his faithfulness, but also as an act of worship. And we still do this today. Lydia and I, we made a decision early on that we're also not going to give 10% of the net of what we make. So after taxes. So let's say I make $100 doing something. I give, $11 in tax. I have $89 left. I'm not going to give the Lord $8.90 because that's 10% of my net. I'm going to give him $10. 10 because the Lord deserves to receive his tithe before the government gets their money. Because I like the Lord way more than I like the government. So if a man wishes to redeem any part of his tithe, he shall add 1/5 to it. So say you're going to give your 10% of your barley that you grew this year, but you actually need that barley for whatever reason. Whatever it's valued at, you can give that in money plus 20% to the temple, and that counts. For every tithe of the herd or the flock, whatever passes under the shepherd's staff, the 10th one shall be holy to the Lord. The man is not to be concerned with whether the animal is good or bad, nor shall he exchange it. But if he does exchange it, then both it and the substitute become holy. It shall not be redeemed. So every 10th animal that is born, it belongs to the Lord. And what they would do is, it's pretty amazing. They would, when they have, a new flock of lambs that is born, as they're being brought into the city for whatever reason, as they would pass through, not the city, the shepherd's gate. Shepherd would stand at the gates and he would hold his staff out to prevent the next one from going through. He would check it for deformities. He'd check it for defects, see what's going on. Then he'd let it go through. He'd do that. And then on the 10th one, he would stop it, regardless of whether it was good or bad. It's the 10th one, so it's the tithe. And he would dip his staff in vermilion, which is it's sulfur and carbon. It's been cooked together, and vermilion is really the color red. It's a deep, deep red. They would liquefy, either with oil or water. He would dip his staff in it, and then he would touch that staff to the lamb's head, marking it with this blood red color that one belongs to the Lord. And it's just, there's so much symbolism in that, so much foreshadowing. The giving of the first tenth, the firstborn of creation, Jesus, the lamb, marked in blood, marked in red, belongs to the Lord. And so, man, you could just dive into so many parts of Leviticus with little things like that. But it's holy to the Lord, belongs to him. Last verse of Leviticus. These are the commandments which the Lord Moses on the Mount Sinai commanded screwed up the last verse. These are the commandments which the Lord commanded Moses on Mount Sinai for the children of Israel. This is 3 out of the 5 books of the Torah, and this is the foundation for our Christian faith. It's so important to understand these, where you can go and watch Endgame, Avengers Endgame, and it's great, but you will not understand the depth of what's happening in that movie if you had not watched all the movies before. Same way we can see Christ's death and resurrection. That's phenomenal. It's salvation, in fact. It's eternity. But you'll never grasp the full depth of what Jesus has done until you understand these stories here. And it's amazing. So, but I guess I'm preaching to the choir, because if you made it to this point in this podcast, you've probably listened to all the ones before. I don't know if anybody is jumping straight to the end of Leviticus. So if you've been along with us for this ride for over a year now, thank you so much for watching. Next week, we're diving into Numbers. Hopefully you've been learning something, and I'm so glad I get to do this podcast. And remember, it's all about remembering the Lord and worship. And so thank you for joining us. All these rules, it's meant to be too much. It's meant to be more than we can handle. That's why we needed Jesus. That's what Leviticus is about. Sacrifice of Jesus. And so we will see you guys next week on the Amplified podcast about the same time next Monday.